guys, it's Claire Aiken from the Fiddle Fig Plant Resource Center, and today I want to talk to you about how to buy a plant online because it's a question that I get a lot, and I think that people are really intimidated about buying a plant online, especially an expensive plant, and so I just wanted to go through the basics of my experience and what I recommend. And so to get started, I just want to kind of tell you that it's safe to buy plants online. So if you haven't done so before, don't worry. I've bought tons of plants online. In fact, I buy plants online all the time because I have two little kids, and so I have a 1-year-old and a 2-year-old, and so I can't get out to the stores very often, and a lot of the shopping that I do during nap time from my computer. So I have bought plants from plants.com, from houseplantshop.com, Amazon. I've even bought plants from overseas, Etsy, specialty growers, and so I'll link some of my favorite stores below, and some of my experiences have been good and some have been bad, but the main thing that I want to recommend when you're shopping for a plant online is to go through a reputable person. So I had a really bad experience buying plants from overseas from a rare plant seller on eBay where I got totally ripped off and I wasted $400 on a variegated fiddly fig that was dead on arrival. And I've seen a lot of kind of regrets online from people that have done the same thing. So if you are going to buy a plant online, look for a reputable dealer that is as close as you can find to your location. So what I mean by that is I'm in California, and so I just bought a variegated monstera, and the way that I went about shopping on Etsy for this variegated monstera is I found a grower who was growing out of San Francisco. And so that means that the trip that your plant is going to take is a lot shorter. So whereas, I can get something overnight from San Francisco to San Diego, I don't want my plant to sit for days or a week in a dark box where it's getting beat up. It might get cold, it might get hot. So try to find somebody who's selling the plant as close to you as possible, hopefully in the same state or, within a 1-day shipping time. My next tip is to always pay for expedited shipping if you can. So if you could do same day or overnight, the less time that your plant is in transit, the better. And so one of the companies that we work with is houseplantshop.com, and they ship all of their plants through the mail, but they do it really quickly. So it's 1 or 2 day transit time, and their plants are packed up really safely. And so, they get there really, really quickly. And so it's important to try to find a grower near you and pay for expedited shipping if you can. The next thing that I want to recommend is basically when you're going about buying a rare plant, you want to make sure that you get a plant that you know is going to do well. And so if you're buying, for example, I recently bought a white fusion calathea. What I did first is buy a cheap calathea to make sure it would grow in my house and in my conditions and where I wanted to put that plant. So when I figured out that the growing conditions were perfect and that plant was really healthy, then I bought the rarer version that was a lot more expensive because I knew right where I was going to put it, and I put it right next to the one that was already doing well. And so that's just one tip. If you want to get a fiddly fig, maybe start with a small one. Make sure that it does well where you want to put it. It's getting enough light that you can kind of figure out the drainage issues, and then maybe buy a larger one or a more expensive one. And then from there, what I want to say is when you get your plant home, it is really important to realize that plants can have pests and fungus and issues, whether it comes, from a grower or whether those problems develop when it's in a box being shipped to you. So what can happen is fungus and molds can start growing as soon as your plant is in the dark in a box. And so when you take your plant out of the box, you want to quarantine it for sure, especially if you have a collection that you're really worried about. And I am for sure. So as soon as I get a new plant in, which I do all the time, I take it as far away from my variegated monstera as I can. And because I don't want to contaminate that plant if it is carrying either pests or mold or fungus or any kind of infection. And so what I do is we actually make a product that is an antifungal, it's an anti-insectal, and it protects your plant against all kinds of things, fungus, gnats, any pests, any diseases. And so as soon as I bring a plant into my home, I spray it down with our Leaf Armour. You could spray the whole plant, the undersides of the leaves, even the soil, and it will kill any kind of problems that are on that plant. And then you still want to keep it away from your other plants for at least a week or two, just to make sure there's no issues going on with it, and make sure that it's healthy and that it's thriving before you move it into any rooms with your other plants. And so after that, I would caution you to also wait to fertilize your plants. And so I recommend waiting to fertilize your plant for probably 3 months, because what happens is the growers have been fertilizing your plant and the soil may actually have a slow release fertilizer in it. So you don't want to over fertilize your plants, especially when you first get it and you're not sure how much fertilizer it's been getting before. So I would wait about 3 months before you do any kind of fertilizing for your plant. You definitely want to repot it when you get it home. So when plants are growing in a greenhouse, oftentimes they're in these kind of smaller, really fast draining containers, and they're watering them maybe every day or every other day in the greenhouse, but that's not really how we water our plants at home. And so what you want to do is you want to plant it in a larger container with an appropriate soil for your plant. So you could get our Fiddle fig soil, or, you know, for whatever plant it is, get the appropriate soil for that plant and plant it in a larger container that is going to do a better job of keeping the soil consistently moist over a longer period of time. Because if you leave it in the grower's pot, what happens is it will dry out really quickly, and so you'll have to water all the time. And so it's just not a very good solution for the drier environment of our home. And so I definitely recommend repotting and then learning how to water your plant on a more appropriate watering schedule. So for Fiddle figs, you know, think about watering every Friday, use a moisture meter to make sure your plant isn't too wet, and then just kind of, you know, get to know your plant and make sure that you're not overwatering as you bring it into your home and it adapts to your home. And then the kind of last tip I would take about you know, buying a plant online is just to take a before and after picture. So it's crazy how fast these plants grow, especially if you give them good care, and if you you know, are fertilizing it and using the right products, your plant is really going to blossom quickly. And so it's fun to take before and after pictures, compare them, and that way you also have a picture, you know, if anything goes wrong with your plant, you can compare it with how it was when it arrived and kind of double check and say, you know, is it getting worse, is it getting better, and just kind of track the progress. So if you have any questions, let me know. I hope that this video was helpful for you, and happy growing.